Yes.
It does not need to be in the camera.
Yes, it does. All right. We can slide that over there. Slide this over here. And just center it up. Put that back in there. And there we go. Centered. All right, come back in. Just in case y'all didn't know what we were talking about today.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. Thinking too much about it.
You are thinking way too much about it.
I am
Provide
thinking
your
way
password to use Microsoft Outlook.
Oh, good thing I'm not using Microsoft Outlook right now. All right.
All right, let's do it.
Sponsored by God of War.
Except not
No,
really.
except not really.
Reminds me of back when you got your PS5. Your PS5 was just in the background for weeks.
Yep, just sponsored by it, just not really. All right, let's go to Zoom. Let's start this audio recording. I mean, technically, we're already recording live on YouTube. No, get out of here.
Tube you.
The U of Tubes. The U of Tubes, brought to you by you and me.
Thanks to viewers like you.
And the letter U.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's begin here in 5, 4. Where's the record button?
It's right there.
And we are back with another episode of the Media Boat Podcast, your weekly stops for music, TV, movies, and video games. Not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Thank you for joining us for the Media Boat Podcast. Today is November the 12th, 2022. This is episode 357. We'll like the ring of that. 357 is a good number.
Yep.
And yeah, we have all of that and more. Busy show today. Let's get it rolling. And we always start
with the music section. And we start the music section with the weekend, no, not the weekend box office, the Billboard. And we start the Billboard.
Old habits die hard.
With the Hot 100.
Yes.
Yes. And once again, your number one song, Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift.
But Taylor was nice this week and let other people have the rest of the top 5.
Yes, other people gladly came and knocked off the other remaining 4 spots. What about the other remaining 10 spots?
So the rest of Midnight's is still in the Hot 100 somewhere.
Okay.
I believe there are a couple more in the top 10, but not in the top 5. She only has the number one song this week. Oh, so sad. Only the number one song.
Only the number one song. Poor Taylor.
Yeah.
Yes, poor Taylor at her new launch dates.
There's 17
added dates
and 5 days in LA. Yeah, we'll get there.
Anyways, at number 2, Lift Me Up by Rihanna.
Yes, Rihanna.
Ahead of the Black Panther soundtrack release, which was last week.
Her grand return to the top charts.
Yep. Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out this week.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about that
next week.
At number 3, Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras.
Yep.
Coming in at 4, Bad Habits by Steve Lacy.
Bad Habit, singular.
Bad Habits. Bad Habit.
Bad Habit.
Yes, that is very bad habits.
Yeah.
that I have.
Apparently.
And rounding out your top 5, As It Was by Harry Styles.
Yeah, As It Was Harry Styles. It seems like that's your song of the year if you're just looking at like charting. Like it's definitely still there, never going away.
Just like something else in the Billboard 200, your albums chart.
Yeah.
Once again, at number 1, Midnights by Taylor Swift. People continue to listen to Midnights.
Yep.
At 2, It's Only Me by Lil Baby. Coming in at 3, Un Verano Sin Ti by Bad Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
At 4, Revolver by The Beatles.
If this one confuses you, it is important to know there was a super deluxe re-release of Revolver a couple weeks ago, so that is why it has returned to the top 5. But it's always fun to see something from literally the 1960s appear in the top 5 records of the week. I did listen to the remaster of Revolver. Still, yeah, it sounds great. They did a lot of work, especially on Eleanor Rigby. Sounds great in the new master. Some of the pan problems that they had, taking the mono tracks into stereo, are gone thanks to some usage of the technology that Peter Jackson used in the documentary.
Yeah.
They were able to re-piece together the master tracks in a different way based on that technology to make it sound even better in stereo. So I think it's the best the songs have ever sounded in stereo specifically because, again, it was such a long time ago. The Beatles really only cared about the mono version of those because they thought at the time that would be what was the most heard versions of those songs. True in the 1960s, not true anymore.
Yes.
But yeah, now finally we have a really, really, really good mono version of that album. Still probably my number 2 Beatles record, Revolver. I think I'm maybe a little bit more of a Rubber Soul guy, but Revolver is very good.
To give that into context, it's as if someone doesn't want to convert their current like digitals to a Dolby Atmos.
Similar, yes.
Because not everyone has a Dolby Atmos.
Exactly. We're like, decades out from Atmos being the standard.
Yes.
If ever, honestly.
So in, 60 years from now,
we
will see Midnights.
Right, Midnights. Super Deluxe version re-release.
Yes, on the charting again.
It's never sounded this good. Anyway. And rounding out your top 5.
And rounding your top 5, as mentioned, Dangerous Double Album by Morgan Wallen.
Who was somehow invited and prominently featured at the CMAs this week, by the way. There were a lot
of cameras on him.
I only watched 5 minutes of it. I watched 5 minutes of like the opening monologue between the hosts, Peyton Manning and Luke Bryan, just to see how the banter was.
Yes.
Terrible is the answer.
Very cringy banter.
Oh, it was awful. But yeah, and as soon as they could, they went right to Morgan Wallen in the audience.
Yep.
And I was like, this is embarrassing. Come on, Beanball.
They're playing to their audience.
I guess so. It is country's biggest night.
Yes.
As they said multiple times.
I guess we could talk about it. It's the CMAs. It's music.
I didn't include it in the stories this week because if we reported on every single music awards show, it would be the only thing we talked about.
Yeah.
So I refuse.
Just the one that matters.
Yeah, just the one that matters. And even that's questionable lately.
Yes, right. by the weekend standards.
Yes. All right. Well, those are your Billboard charts.
Well, I did watch the CMAs.
Yeah.
Good Alan Jackson tribute.
Sure.
Very cheerful speech by Alan Jackson. And once again, Luke Combs is the repeat entertainer of the year.
Sure.
Back to back, joining multiple people, or joining 7 people who have won the award multiple times.
Did Taylor ever win?
I don't. She might have won once.
I feel like she might have won in the Fearless era.
Yeah.
But that's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. I don't know. It's a whole era ago.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. If you didn't like any of those albums or the CMAs, we have new releases, including The Family by Brockhampton.
Notable as Brockhampton says that this is their final album. They will be breaking up shortly here.
Casme by Caitlin Rose.
First album in a decade, I think.
World Record by Neil Young and Crazy Horse.
Yes, that Neil Young.
Yes, and that Crazy Horse. Black Girl Magic by Honey Dijon. Not mustard.
Not the actual mustard, no, a human.
Yes. Get Rollin', dropping the G, by Nickelback.
Yes, that Nickelback.
Yep, they're back. The Ruby Chord by Richard Dawson. Wait,
not that
Richard Dawson?
Not that Richard
Not
Dawson.
that Richard Dawson. Profound Mysteries 3 by Royksop. And lastly, And in the Darkness, Hearts Aglow by Wheeze Blood.
Wait, Waze Blood? I actually don't know.
Waze?
Wise. Oh, is it Wise?
Is it Wise Blood? Because eyes with the W?
I don't know. I've only heard her or seen her name written. I've never heard it said. I have no idea, actually. We'll ask her.
Or do some research.
Do some research for a podcast? Never.
Research? No.
Never. We've never done that. Why would we start now?
No. Hey, let's get some music news. Hey. And last Saturday was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, it was. We didn't talk about it last week, but
we'd already announced who was
getting inducted. Yes. So, but yeah,
it was just the actual ceremony. If you want to watch the actual ceremony, it'll be on HBO and HBO Max in December
Yes.
Yeah, I think first week of December, not November.
I believe so.
Yep. But everyone who was billed to perform, there's one person who will not be shown.
Who didn't.
Yes. Alanis Morrissette has come forward to explain that encountering sexism was what caused her to drop out of a performance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony Saturday night, where she was to have performed a duet with Olivia Rodrigo of the classic hit You're So Vain, as part of a tribute to inductee Carly Simon. Morissette did participate in rehearsals on Friday before taking her leave. In a post to her Instagram Live account, Morissette left some mystery as to precisely what soured her so much during those rehearsals.
Soured.
Olivia Rodrigo soured.
Olivia Rodrigo was mentioned, so.
Yes, as soured. Wait, isn't that why she...
Anyways.
You lost me.
What soured her so much?
Yes, during those rehearsals, as to have her exiting the show seemingly at the last minute.
Yeah.
After being listed on all the in-house scheduling. But Morissette strongly indicated that whatever she encountered while she was still on site brought up long simmering feelings about an overarching anti-woman sentiment in the industry. And she seemed to place the blame at the foot of the telecast production team, suggesting that whatever she experienced there stood in contrast to countless incredible experiences with production teams with all genders throughout her life.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that happens a lot and seems to continue happening, where it's like you have an artist say like, hey, I just wasn't going to take how they were treating me. Without going into specifics, she does kind of leave like a question here about whether other people, specifically the women that were involved in this production, also felt this way. Although there weren't that many other women performing this year,
it might
right?
not be anything that was also directed towards her, but
maybe
probably that she heard directed towards other people.
It could have even been towards Olivia Rodrigo, for all we know. It could have just been, something really rubbed her the wrong way, and she just decided that it wasn't worth it. And this is a problem. It's always been a problem. And so, it's good to see Alanis pointing it out, as she has her entire career, when it does happen. So that way, maybe they'll take this to heart, and maybe the people who produce this show will think about like, well, what did we do?
Conversely, maybe she did bring it up and they weren't going to do anything about it because it was so close to the actual performance.
Yeah, it's especially interesting though, because that was a great performance to watch. And also, also it's kind of fitting in a weird way, because Carly Simon is an example of one of the earliest female artists kind of getting that message out there, writing songs about, hey, there is a double standard. Like, I'm going to write songs specifically about my experience with men and how men have treated me. It was novel in the 1960s, and yet we're still dealing with the same problems today. It's unfortunate, and this is a good reminder that this never went away.
Well, it's okay. There's a lot of things that happened in the 1960s that keep rearing their heads up in today's world.
You're telling me.
That still seemingly we thought would go away, and yet didn't.
Anyways,
there was an election on Tuesday.
Hope everybody voted on Tuesday. Hey, it seemed to go pretty well here in California. Seems like good news all over the place, unless you like fruit-flavored vape. But hey, you do you.
That's not for me.
Not for me either. But somebody out there is really pissed. Like, I love raspberry. Anyways. Everything else seemed like be pretty well. Well, except for I wanted that the clean air stuff for cars thing to pass. I don't care if Lyft was paying for it. It still sounded like a good deal to me, and it did not pass. Suck it, but also most importantly,
online gambling.
Suck it, online gambling. Take that shit elsewhere. California wants none of it.
No, they want a bigger percentage.
Yeah, no DraftKings.
Only 8 pennies.
Ugh, gross.
8 pennies to the dollar.
I said no to both of those things.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, let's move on.
You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, that was political corner over there.
Political corner.
All right, pulling it back into music. little crossover with the movie section.
Yeah, I noticed you had another. I didn't realize until after I pasted this that you had a different music documentary in the movie section.
Well, what I have is not a documentary; it's an actual production.
Okay.
This, however, is a feature documentary.
Yes.
Yes, on the life and career of Ecuadorian American pop singer. This is where you take your 5 seconds to guess who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you're wrong. It is Christina Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera, yes.
Yes. She has been in partnership with Time Studios, Rock Nation, and director Ting Poo.
Ting Poo.
Yep. The film will focus on Aguilera's life story, spotlighting pieces from her personal archives. Rare footage will showcase the singer's early days as a preteen Disney star to her current status as an international artist. Quote, offering a portrait of the artist, mother, and entertainer as she reflects on her multi-decade career fighting for creative freedom and gender equality. The announcement also makes note that production for the film has quietly been documenting Aguilera's life for the past 18 months through various travels, performances, and other life events.
So yeah, if this sounds familiar, it's because, as we mentioned last year, we're currently in the middle of kind of what's a music documentary renaissance of sorts, or golden era, where we're getting all sorts of stories, especially from women in the music industry, of where they started, what they're doing now, kind of delving into their inner struggles, kind of like what they've had to deal with. And I think Christina Aguilera is a perfect choice to kind of delve into, because it's kind of like right in the middle of the Britney Spears stuff we've kind of been uncovering the last few years, and also these more recent documentaries about these younger artists like Taylor Swift, and what I'm going to talk about later, Selena Gomez.
Yep.
And so it's really interesting to have Christina, because I think she could be a fascinating figure, because she had a similar kind of start to her career where she had, you can talk about that kind of Disney era, her huge like Britney Spears rivalry era, into kind of her more solo diva era, and into being basically a TV co-host for a stint there. And then and it's really fascinating when you consider, what is she doing now? Like it's a valid question. And so I think she'll be a fascinating subject for a documentary like this.
As we're going on for the past 18 months, so it's going to be up to current as well. It's not just a documentary on her past life, the untold stories of documentary, of untold stories of documentary, untold stories of Christina Aguilera.
Yes. So this could be cool. So I'm glad this is a good pick for this one, I think.
Yeah. Well, she's doing it herself too.
Right. Hey, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Also, I never heard of Ting Poo, but it's all I want to say now. Ting Poo.
Yeah, I saw you put that on there. I was like, okay,
Ting Poo.
Sure. So we're doing that now.
Director Ting Poo.
Yes. All right. Did you listen to anything besides Midnights?
No. Another slow week for me, music-wise. I even looked at the new releases yesterday. I was like, I don't want to listen to any of this. Yep. So I'm still looking, but not much going on.
Yep, same. I just went back to Midnights again.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that at the end of the year. It's going to end up somewhere on my list.
Yes, it will. I mean, it might end up on both of our lists, but we'll get there.
Who can say?
All right. So let's get into video games.
Because you are raring to go for this segment, I'm sure.
Oh, at the end, though.
Yes.
So let's get right through it.
Yes.
Starting with new releases.
Yes.
And we start with Pentiment for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC.
That is the Obsidian-developed RPG that looks like a illuminated manuscript from medieval times. Remember when they showed this at was that at Summer Games Fest this year? I think. It's basically
it's the scroll.
Yeah, this is that an illuminated manuscript, like in your medieval course in junior high history. Yeah, where it's like
scroll.
It's like that thing with RPG elements and heavy text. Okay. I've seen a lot of comparisons to Disco Elysium, a game that will come up later in this podcast. But yes, it seems like neat, and it seems like it might be neat for RPG fans, and it is on Game Pass.
Okay. We also have Somerville for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC. Your wide release of Call of Duty: Warzone 2.0.
Yes.
For everything but the Switch.
Yes, new revamp of Warzone that will be attached to Modern Warfare 2.
Yep.
So I believe you will have this already if you bought a copy of Modern Warfare 2, but it will also be sold separately, I believe, just like the first time.
Yes. Also, Goat Simulator for everything but the Switch. Isn't this Ghost Simulator 3?
I don't know if they're putting a number on this because I think it might just be they're hitting reset on the franchise. Okay. I actually am not sure.
All right. We also have the Dark Pictures Anthology, The Devil in Me.
Yep.
For everything but the Switch.
Another Dark Pictures game in the anthology that the Supermassive team, I believe, the Until Dawn, the Quarry people, have been working on. So if you've been waiting for another episode of that, here it is.
And lastly, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yes.
For the PC.
Yes.
So you get all those PC mods.
Yes, Spider-Man.
Fire back up again.
Spider-Man PC came out last year. This is now the Miles Morales game that came out on PS5 at launch. Now coming to PC as well. But everything got out of the way because there's one big release this week.
Oh, no, that was it.
No.
Yeah, because that's all the games that are coming out.
No.
Yes, because what we have left to talk about is an event.
Yes, it is.
It's an event.
Yes.
It's huge. It tramples all other games.
Yeah.
Coming in its wake. Talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the Switch.
Yep.
Officially, everyone's going to get their hands on it now.
Generation 9 is here.
Yep.
So yeah, Scarlet and Violet, we will be definitely taking a look at, or I will be at least taking a look at this next week.
Yes.
So I'll be able to talk about it on Saturday when we record the next podcast. I will hopefully be getting my hands on this on Friday. So yeah, excited to try it. Early footage looks good. I like the open world stuff they're trying. And yeah, it sounds like it's really open-ended and has a lot of options for how you complete it.
Isn't it weird that like Arceus came out earlier this year?
Yeah.
And now we have Scarlet and Violet.
That was weird when they announced that was going to be the case. When they said last year, it's like, oh yeah, Arceus in January and then proper next gen in November. Everybody was like, really? Really? You're going to do both? But I think it's smart because at this point, I feel like nobody is really talking about Arceus anymore.
Yeah, but I think everyone who like played Arceus now has a better understanding of what's getting into Scarlet and Violet. It was their tech demo.
Yeah.
As we mentioned when it was released.
Yes and no.
Okay, it was more than a tech demo. It was here's what we want to go.
Yeah. I would say it was an experiment because it looks like some of the stuff that they experimented with in Arceus was returning here, but for the most part, they're going back to proper Pokemon construction for how most of the battle system works.
Unless that's if you want to keep doing the battle system. There's a treasure hunt in there too.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. And so it'll be really interesting to finally actually play it because I want to see how these concepts are introduced and exactly what the flow of combat is, because you can only glean so much from trailers. They've had a lot of trailers.
Yes.
But yeah, it'll be interesting getting hands-on with this thing.
Yep, but that is for next week.
Yeah, it's next week. Oh yeah, by the way, if you care, I'll be playing Scarlet version. Anyways.
I mean, some of us do care.
I'm getting Scarlet and Christy is on Violet.
All right.
Just for your reference.
Just for my reference.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyways,
let's get into some gaming news.
Game bits.
That's the game bits.
There was so much happening this week. I had to fit in some bits.
The bits.
Yes.
The bits. All right. And we start with Remedy. Yes, they have finally confirmed Control 2 is in development and will be published by 505 Games.
Anybody who's like, wait a minute, didn't they already make this official? Yes, technically. They said last year that they were indeed developing a sequel to Control. Now we know it is, at least tentatively, called Control 2, and 505 will be returning to publish just like they did the first one.
Yes.
Seems like good news. People love Control. That's one game that I've tried to start twice and haven't gotten past like 10 minutes in. I need to someday just sit down and play through Control.
I'm trying to figure out which part you would get stumped
at. It wasn't even that I got stumped. It's just that like something came up and I stopped playing it and then never went back to it. I have access to it in a couple of ways now, and I just never actually did it. But yes, Control 2, exciting for people who like that first game.
Yeah, because I finished Control. It is, like you said, it is one of those games where like, oh yeah, I should go back to that and like go back and play and unlock everything.
Yeah.
But there's just always something else that comes up. And it's like, not high on my priority list.
Yeah, and I have to say though, I didn't love how the combat felt when I first started playing it. I was like, this is kind of floaty.
There's a lot of floaty physics, there's a lot of shooting physics.
Don't love that.
So if you're not good in like combining both your floaty and shooting physics,
maybe
you're gonna have a difficult time.
Yeah.
Anyways, other bit news, we have Doom and Doom Eternal composer Mick Gordon claims the director falsely blamed him for the game's failed soundtrack, as he goes on to write a novel-sized account of the events.
So this was a big one this week. Yeah, basically that's the story. A lot of people love the soundtrack that Mick Gordon made for the Doom reboot and Doom Eternal, its sequel. Very fast-ass, hard metal. Exactly the kind of thing you want in Doom. But apparently, under all of that was a series of mistreatments, I guess, that he was having with the team. And yeah, he never felt like his work was treasured like it should have been. And then, yeah, when the fans complained that the soundtrack for Doom Eternal sucked upon its release, he was basically the one that the studio was like, well, it's his fault. Now he finally wrote this huge thing that people think is as big as it is, and long it is, and detailed it is, because he wants to have that prep just in case this goes to court, in case he needs to sue them for this. That he has basically, he and a lawyer probably sat down and wrote everything down. So yeah, you can read this if you really want to. I am not tempted, but you can read his entire account of exactly what he believes happened through all of this and why he thinks he was wrong.
And why, like, the fans like turn on the soundtrack?
Yeah, more or less, and why he thinks that that's not his fault.
I mean, he is the composer.
Well, there's more complicated things, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is, because there's always, especially when dealing with companies.
Yeah, speaking of complicated things happening with companies, this one's brutal.
Oh yeah, ousted developers of Disco Elysium claim that they were pushed out due to financial conflict with the company's owners, while the company's owners claim that they were let go due to misconduct.
All right, so these are two opposing claims that are coming at the exact same time about Disco Elysium. So, thing you need to know for context about the story. Disco Elysium's developer is, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, ZA/UM. It's like ZA/UM. They were founded as like essentially like a co-op, a community-owned company. Like there was originally no one at the top of that company. After Disco Elysium became a success, a couple of people came in and basically bought the company and became new owners. Those are the owners that we're referring to in this story. So apparently shortly after this, they pressured, this is according to a statement on Medium that the developers made, these two head developers that were ousted, which unfortunately I don't have the names of right now off the top of my head. But they basically claimed that these new owners were pressuring them to make a direct sequel to Disco Elysium, instead of a more passion project new game that they wanted to make. And they are claiming that kind of back and forth tension was what led to eventually what their ouster at the company, that the owners were upset that the leadership was not on board with their idea of going straight into Disco Elysium 2. However...
Oh no, the people who bought the company wanted to make a sequel.
Right. And like, I get it from a creative point of view, especially a creative point of view where you had established that this company was going to be a collective thing. To have somebody come in and say, no, you're doing this now, is kind of opposing to that collective ideology and how you ran that company. So I could get why that would brush you and would like annoy you and be like, all right, well, I'm not doing it. I'm going to yell at them about it. So on the other side of this, the owners are counterclaiming here that regardless of whether that is all true, they wouldn't necessarily say if that was true or not, but it probably is. They said that they were also the owners, that they fired them because they were also propagating bad vibes in the studio, basically like mistreating people under them, and were like accusing them basically of misconduct and their leadership roles. And basically that was the reason why they fired them. It had nothing to do with the direction that the company was going on making a sequel or not. So it depends on who you ask, basically what happened at ZA/UM. And this really brings into question about the future of that company. Will they make a sequel to Disco Elysium now that the hairs and the soup are gone? You know, like now you got the people who are like fighting it the most ousted. Or is this true that there maybe needs to be an investigation about what they did while they were there at the company? I feel like this is yet another example of a one party said and the other party said thing, similar to that voice acting thing we had with Bayonetta 3 the last couple of weeks, where we definitely, if you weren't there, there's really no way of knowing. We don't know
But even
exactly
with that,
who's at
like,
fault here.
More information came out from there.
That's true. We got a better picture eventually of
Yeah.
that. I don't know if we're going to get a better picture here because I imagine there's only so much that these people can say without having this go to litigation. Because, yeah, if they did file for wrongful termination, which they could, it sounds like, especially if there is a discrepancy about why, this could go to court. We could see. So imagine we won't find out a whole lot more about this unless it does go to court.
Right, but the one thing about it is that when you get bought up by a company, people at the top make the decisions.
Yes and no, though, right? They should have known what they were buying when they bought it, right?
Yes,
they should have known that these were a passionate bunch of people who had a very specific thing that they wanted to make, and they made it. And yes, it did resonate with fans. That sold really well. You don't necessarily want to come in and be like, sorry, you're doing this immediately again. Like, maybe that's not what they wanted to do. I saw another podcast I listened to.
Then they can leave the company.
Yeah. Another podcast I listened to suggested that this has some parallels to the Gone Home team.
As soon as you buy something, it's a business.
Yes and no, though. Like, there's different kinds of ways to run a business.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily what they were running their business to do.
Make a profit.
Maybe not.
Make a sequel.
Like, they wanted to make a project that they were proud of, and they did that. And they wanted to make a different project that they were proud of. That, you know what? Even if it didn't say Disco Elysium on the name, it probably still would have done well. Because that's the thing about video games, is that people who are hardcore about video games and care are more likely to follow a developer and people who make the games than a fan of a movie is, because they're different animals. It's the same thing of like, oh, this TV show was created by this name that I really like. Oh, they're doing this other thing now. I'm going to follow them. They're not necessarily following it because, oh, it's the direct sequel to a series they liked. That's not how television works. That's not how video games work either.
You mean Blockbuster isn't a direct sequel to Superstore? Even though it has the same writer?
Might as well be, honestly. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that video games is a unique enough thing that I don't know if it matters as much as these companies like to believe if there's a fat 2 on the box or not. Well, in this case, a digital product, there is no box, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, so
on the header.
We'll probably not know more details about this, but it's a interesting story. But ultimately, the losers here are the people who liked Disco Elysium, because this means it's going to be a long time before you get something else in that universe or get something by the same people. Because now that studio looks like it's not the same as it was.
If ever.
Yeah, if ever.
It becomes an IP issue.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yep. Let's see here. Moving on to other news. EA, speaking of things that may have ended, has officially ended the Project Cars series.
Yeah, I don't think people are that surprised by this, considering that when they bought Codemasters had a lot of different car franchises under them. And ultimately, EA wants everybody to work on Need for Speed. So they were going to eventually shut them all down.
Of course.
So yeah, slowly we're probably going to see each of those individual racing franchises disappear.
Yep. Nintendo has established a joint venture with mobile company DeNA, that is DE, capital NA.
And in case you're probably thinking like, wait a minute, didn't this already happen? You're half right. So they've already been working with DeNA on their mobile products. They are the co-developer of games such as Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, Mario Kart Tour, pretty much anything, that Fire Emblem thing, anything that Nintendo's put out, Super Mario Run on mobile has been a DeNA thing. But this is different. This is them going to the next step and actually making a new company that is co-owned, a joint venture between the two companies. That will probably going forward be the company you see the logo of when you start up a Nintendo mobile game.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing now. Just make it streamlined, I guess, on their part.
So it's going to be DeNA by Nintendo?
Something. I don't know if they add a name for it or not. I did not see that in the story, but yeah.
Or just the DeNA logo, then the N turns red for Nintendo.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
All right. We also have, according to marketing materials, Final Fantasy 16 will be a PS5 exclusive for 6 months.
So yeah, this is an asterisk after we knew for a while now that there was going to be a launch exclusive for PS5. Now they more or less concluded that that's just a marketing move and it will go beyond everything else after 6 months. So yeah, you'll be able to play it first on PS5, but yes, it will eventually come out on Series X and I presume PC.
Yes, it will be.
So yeah, no surprises there.
6-month exclusivity window.
Yeah.
So in doing so, you probably won't get any best-selling games out of it.
But
unlike Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is now the best-selling Kirby game.
Yeah, ever in the franchise history. So goes to show you, Nintendo is learning very quickly. If you put anything on the Switch, it will become the best-selling version of that thing.
Yes.
It happened with Zelda already. It happened with Mario Kart. It happened now with Kirby.
And it also happened with Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yes.
As it's now Japan's best-selling game of all time.
Yes, of all time. So that means 2 Switch records happened this year in Japan. We already have the day 1 sales record with Splatoon 3's launch.
Yep.
And now we have an all-time best-selling game with Animal Crossing New Horizons. That's insane, considering that how well...
It came out 2 years ago?
This is especially wild considering how well Nintendo games sell in Japan, period. Like, so this is saying this outdid Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, and Pokemon games in Japan.
Yep.
If you're outdoing Pokemon games in Japan, you're doing extremely well.
It outdid the Monster Hunter games, the Xeno Chronicle games.
Wild. So yeah, your new king, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Your crown is in the mail?
Yes.
Visit the Tanuki store?
Yeah, exactly. It's waiting for you in Tom Nook's store.
It's waiting
in Nook's
for you.
Cranny.
Yes. You just got to buy it with a bunch of pearls.
Yeah, bells.
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 The currency.
Yep. And lastly, in gaming bits here, you have that Marvel Snap.
Yes.
Season 2 is officially up.
And do you have things to say about that before we go into your big video game thought? Have you messed around with the Season 2 stuff yet?
Yeah. Technically not Season 2.
What do you mean technically not Season 2?
Because when I started playing it, it went through a season of... Nick Fury first.
Oh, okay.
And then it went into season 1.
Well, yes.
Technically, the launch is Spider-Man, and now season 2 is Black Panther.
Well, okay. For people who weren't in the beta, though,
yes,
this is a season 2 proper.
Yeah, season 2 proper. Lots of new people, lots of new combos. I sent you my snapshots.
Oh yeah, you've broken the game. You've straight up broken the game. You had 4-digit numbers in a single like base.
Yeah, I sent you one that had over 9,000 at a single base. And then I sent you one that had 4 digits at all 3 locations.
Yeah, I think you've just completely broken Marvel Snap. You're the person that everybody hates to face now. Everybody looks at this guy and like, oh, I'm gonna lose now. You have a lot of people bail on your matches and just like get out.
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
I mean, some do, yeah.
But
not like immediately, like they see my name, like, okay, bail.
Does anybody ever snap against you?
Surprisingly, no. I'm getting a lot less snaps.
Yeah, I wonder why. It's like, well, I'm confident I'm going to lose this, so I don't want to lose too much. Well, congratulations for being way too overpowered in Marvel Snap. But speaking of
I figured to fight deck, and I kind of forgot what I did, so
speaking of,
I don't have it anymore.
Well, there you go.
I gotta retinker it again.
Speaking of overpowered, though, of all the possible video game characters you can think of, when I think of the term overpowered, I definitely think of the guy from God of War.
You mean the guy who kills gods?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really get much more powerful than that.
Than actually killing a god in a video game? Or
just
deities in general.
Right, deities in general. So you've been talking about God of War Ragnarok.
Yes, which is why Pokemon Trainer is the most powerful, because he captures God in a little mechanical ball.
I mean, yes, but outside of the trainer in Arceus. Yes, God of War Ragnarok, the sequel to the 2018 reboot of God of War.
Yes.
A game that you liked so much, it was your #1 game that year.
The game I liked so much, I went and got the Jotner edition.
Not only that, but you've been talking about this sequel basically since it was announced, and basically assuming that this is going to be your game of the year. You've already established that this is going to be your favorite game. Like, all right, it's here.
I established it like last year when you said, what are you looking forward to next year?
Right. God
Game of the year, God of War.
So you've now sat down with it for a little bit here. You've played a lot of it. How is God of War Ragnarok?
It feels like an epic. So when they announced that God of War Ragnarok was going to be the end of the God of War series,
right,
in Norse mythology,
right,
that they basically came out and said, we're not going to do a trilogy. It takes too much time to do a trilogy. It took them 4 years to do God of War to 2018, and then another 4 years to do God of War Ragnarok. So in order to do another 4 years of another God of War game to end a trilogy, the game would come out in 2026.
It would be on a new console probably by then.
Yeah.
And
that'd be over 10 years on one trilogy, and they didn't want to divest that and all that time into it.
Right.
So instead, they took what was God of War 2018 and then wrapped it up here in Ragnarok. Now, that's not to say that I completed the game. I have not completed the game yet.
No,
I'm about a quarter of the game in. I only say that based on like what's happening.
Sure.
But they do bring back one of my favorite things that I loved about 2018 is the single take, the long take,
yes,
the zero cuts, the moving of the camera. I loved it in 2018. I loved it. I'm going to love it here in 2022. I still love it. It's great. It's fun how they manipulate everything because unlike the 2018 game, Ragnarok technically doesn't take place over a day or a weekend. This takes place over a week, over several days. So how they're able to manipulate that while still maintaining the single long take is fascinating on a story level, on a story written basis. So as the name implies, Ragnarok, end of the world, you're going to face Odin, you're going to face Thor. That's not any shocking surprise. That's kind of the given.
Yeah. And also, depending on how much you know about the end of the first God of War, you also know that your son is going to have a big part in this.
Yeah. I'm sure I guess it's no longer a spoiler.
We could probably do spoilers for the God of War first game, because I feel like in order to play this one, you need to know about this.
Oh, they definitely go into like the first 10 minutes that you start this game of your boy.
Yes.
Not being just any boy.
Atreus.
Yes. Boy, Atreus, son, is none other than Loki in Norse mythology of the Frost Giants. So what this game does is it's building towards Ragnarok. It's Loki building towards Ragnarok, kind of a forcing of the hand of everyone around him, that because he's more curious about his nature and his name and what the Frost Giants of Jotunheim want for him, or like the predictions and seeing in the future, that he is on the path to fulfill the destiny. And that's where the game gets interesting, and that's where a lot of the major theme of this game is.
Right.
Which, unlike 2018, which was a father and son both mourning the loss of their mother and wife, and how they can build a bond and basically start new, start fresh, and have that father-son bonding experience of spreading the mother's ashes.
Right.
What Ragnarok is fighting the destiny. Is because everything is laid out in a prophecy. Let's just say it's a prophecy. Can you change that prophecy? Can you deviate from it? Can you do everything in your power to not make that prophecy happen?
Right. It's an interesting
spoilers. You can't.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is like it's an interesting way to take a character who, like we had said, has a history of violence and hardcore violence and has always used violence as the first thing. So now he's faced, though, as a family man now. He has a son. He's in a different context that he used to be. Now he's facing down the barrel of inevitable violence that will ruin everything.
It's not just the inevitable violence. It's the Kratos God of War original trilogy.
Right.
Was the general, was the God of War, was felt in and thrived in the bloodshed, was the general who became the God of War. Now, 2018, he's the father. He's a matured man. He's a changed man. He knows what it takes to go up against actual gods and what it takes to defeat them. And he doesn't want that for his son.
No, because he's been there and he's learned from that, and it's an interesting place to take it. It's that classic screenwriting trick, right, or writing trick in general, which is what you have a character. What is the absolute worst situation for that character to be in? And in this case,
it's his son following in his own footsteps.
Exactly. It's taking the end of where you left off of that and being like, okay, well, this is who Kratos is now. what would be the worst thing for Kratos to face now. And yeah, you're right. Is that his son wants to do something that he doesn't agree with, but it's gonna happen no matter what he needs, what they do.
But that's kind of what happens in the gap between the games.
Yeah,
is that Kratos is preparing Loki, Atreus to face gods, to survive, not to win the war. But he doesn't see it as that.
Yeah, he sees it as, no, this is what my destiny is. I'm part of this. This has to happen.
I'm coming to basically instill Ragnarok and end Asgard as it is.
Yeah.
As foretold, I am following this destiny. But then you have Tyr, the actual god of war from Norse mythology, who doesn't want war.
Right.
Which, kind of conflicts with being a god of war. But being a god of war doesn't mean you go to war. Being a god of war means that people will fight, and technically you have to choose a side, but also you don't have to choose a side. And that's what a lot of this little nuance goes into, as Loki, Atreus, now within the first third of the game, he's represented with two fathers, both gods of war. One, his father, who's been training him, who has him from his Spartan side, and another one from the Frost Giants, who is god of war of the Aesir's, who was the other half of Atreus and Loki. So now he has these two different essential father figures.
My two dads.
It's my two dads. These two father figures who both have differing views of how to handle Ragnarok, being influenced into Atreus Loki. Now, that's not to say that he is the main character in this.
Right.
Because technically, it's still Kratos, dad of war over here.
It puts Kratos in an interesting... it makes Kratos an interesting choice for a protagonist, right? Because he is way more passive this time. He has to be almost, because the story is not necessarily about him. He's reacting to the story in a way, and he's your vehicle to hit all these story beats.
He even calls it out in the game that I'm going on this journey for you. I'm spending this time with you. I am following your journey blindly because you are taking the lead on this.
So that's a perfect segue into... We should probably start actually talking about the game, because it's very interesting and I think very telling that you and pretty much everybody I've heard talk about this game, they always lead with the story stuff, because that's the one thing, not the one thing, but that seems to be the thing that most affected people about that first game, right? Is yeah, sure, there was a game there, but it was more about the way that they presented the narrative, the story they were telling, and how it made you actually care about Kratos, which is not something that a lot of people did in the original trilogy.
Right, they just took him as a bloodbath monster machine.
Right, so does the change in narrative focus here, taking it away from Kratos and taking it to these side characters, does that affect the actual gameplay? Does it feel different than the first one?
I played the game wrong.
Uh-oh.
So, as I mentioned last week, I was going through 2018 on New Game Plus.
Right.
In doing so, I was doing everything on maxed out armor, maxed out everything. Not necessarily worrying about completing certain tasks or not.
Right.
So, much to my chagrin, when I start up this game, it's oh yeah, they make you start over at 0.
Yeah.
I don't have everything.
I almost said last week, it's I don't know if it's a good idea to play all of the first one and then go back into this new one, because you're going to have to reset. But I didn't say that because I was surely he knows that, right? I don't want to tell him stuff he already knows. Well, here we are.
Well, I didn't play the full game. I just made the main story.
A lot of it.
But yeah, still I went through a lot of it. And then it's oh yeah, when you go to open up all these random chests, it's oh no, there's actual stuff in there to help buff you up.
Yeah.
Which, goes to my innate nature of check every corner, find everything.
Which the game plays into. I heard some people say that there's actually dialogue where it's oh yeah, that's just what my dad does. He has to check every place for treasure chests. I'm okay, that's cute.
Yes.
That's a cute thing.
It is. Because that's right after they meet with Tyr. And then you go come on, go this way.
It's you're going the wrong way.
He's why is he going that way? He's oh, to find loot. He likes loot.
It's true. He does.
Yes.
but So yeah, so like the change in perspective, does it make Kratos feel like not as like much of the focal point? Like when you're even though you're playing as him, is that there a little bit of tension there between what the story is telling you and the actual gameplay?
The story is, I mean, a little bit, because like the story is not Kratos' story. It's not the mourning of a father over his wife, and now he has to console his son,
Right,
and he doesn't know how.
Right.
That's what 2018 was.
Yeah.
This is, I know where this is going to lead, because he saw, and that we saw at the end of 2018, that he is meant to die during Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So how do you come to terms with your own fate, mortality?
Right.
For a, let me see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th time?
Yeah, too many times.
Like canonically,
Yeah.
like 5 times you've been to hell and back.
Not including the PSP game.
I think that is including the PSP game.
Anyway.
But yeah, so you got to hell and back like several times already, and now for some reason, like death actually means something to you now.
Well, yeah, because video games changed, and now the stakes have to be higher.
Yes. Yes, it's not like you can go to hell and then back.
Save it for Dante's Inferno by EA. Anyway, so how is the actual gameplay here? So the combat seems to be pretty similar to the first game.
Yes, a lot more verticality, a lot more running around, a lot more bringing enemies closer. You start off with both the axe.
Yeah, you get the chains blades really early now.
Yeah, you just start off right with them, and one of the new grappling maneuvers that you do is you grapple up buildings, but also you grapple enemies to bring them towards you or to go towards them.
Are you still having fun with that, or do you think it's getting a little stale? Because I see a lot of people say it's like, because of how much more interesting the story is as opposed to the combat, that the combat wears thin after a certain amount of hours.
The combat may wear thin because people aren't doing the actual challenges for it.
I see. Okay. So they incentivize you to try everything.
Yes. Part of the skill tree, the added skill tree, is that if you unlock something, you can increase its power the more you do something.
Yeah.
We've seen this in other games. This isn't a new thing.
It's common.
But what they do is that they add challenges to it, so that way you want to do it. You want to do it. You want to like get gold level everywhere. So when by the time I get to end game, anything I do is going to be gold level with plus perks. Sure. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now is, oh, I unlocked this thing. Let me just spam this 50 times.
How is all the unlocks and tech trees and all that stuff? Is it maybe a little much, especially after coming after Horizon Forbidden West, another game where it was a little much?
It can feel a little much, but they split it up to where Atreus and Kratos don't have the same pool of XP. Kratos has his own XP. Atreus has his own XP, and they get a little notification of like how much XP they each gained after each battle.
Seems like a lot to keep track of.
No, but they keep track. But you don't really keep track of like per battle. It's just you check in the menu, like, oh, I have enough for this now.
But are you doing that a lot though? Because like in Horizon Forbidden West, sometimes it felt like every single like 3 steps I took, I was like, oh, I have to do this one thing because I just unlocked 3 different new things.
In the beginning, kind of. Because there's like the whole like menu item card things where it's like it's going to block you from doing anything until you follow the item card instruction.
I honestly hate that. It's so annoying.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as you get through them, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
The one thing that I do have like gripe with, and the same thing I had to gripe with 2018, is the armor options.
Sure. Yes.
Lots of armor options.
Too many.
To where, well, I want to hoard my resources for all the good armor.
Yes, but
I need the good armor to get to all the good sources.
Yeah, that kind of stuff always bugs me because I'm also that kind of person where I'm like, well, no, like with Forbidden West again, I keep bringing it up because Sony first party games seem to all be going in the same direction.
Yeah,
which is super customizable, but way too much stuff to do. Anyway, and yeah, in that game, it was very much like, well, no, I don't want to waste these one-use items on this blue armor because I know I'm going to get purple armor later.
Yes.
I'm going to save it for that. But the game clearly doesn't want you to do that.
So what this game does instead is that a lot of the, like, it gives you the option of the green armor first.
Yeah.
Like the generic armor, just buy silver or gold, hack silver. But the mini games, or the mini games, the side quests, give you items that purposely go to one specific armor.
Okay.
And I really, really like that.
That's
if you complete the side quest, it'll give you an item that you have to use for this. You can't use it for anything else.
That's smart.
And it pretty much tells you that, like, oh, after you've done all the side quests and collected everything for it, it's like, yeah, if you use it here, you'll use all of this resource. But guess what? That's because it's on purpose.
Yeah.
You're going to use it here. You can't literally use it anywhere else. Nothing else can be used to buy it. And I really, really like that.
Okay, so that's a step forward, I guess, in that. But still a lot.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I noticed when I was doing my New Game Plus for 2018.
Yeah.
Is that I was collecting all these like perfect skag plates. But when I went to the armor shop, I'm like, yeah, I can get that, but I know there's going to be more stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Like the further I get into the game. So I don't want to spend all of it now. Let me go see what the actual like best armor is.
Okay.
But here, because like I know that I can only use it here for this one specific armor, I can buy it and then upgrade it. Even though I know like down the line I'm going to spend it elsewhere or get better armor elsewhere. I'll do that for those side quests, but I know that I need to get it upgraded now in order to get to that place.
Okay. And you said, so you're about a fourth in?
Yeah.
So how long do you think this is going to be? Like
I saw some 40-hour
40
games.
hours.
Basically, I know I have to go to all 9 realms.
Yeah.
I've only gone to a third of them.
Okay.
Let's see. 1, 2. I'm going into 2.5, 3. I'm going into my third one.
Okay.
Like third official one with Kratos. That's a little like caveat.
Yes, because there are some spoilers that we probably don't want to go into yet.
Yes,
because this game is kind of new. But yes, my understanding is that there are
as
some
Kratos,
multiple character things happening.
Yes, which is weirdly done because, like I said, it is a one take.
Yeah,
it's a one shot. So when you have to move the camera angle around to a new character's perspective,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's good direction.
So I know you're not that far in it, but so far, how does this compare with the first one? I mean, obviously, for one of the things about that game was it was novel, and so a lot of that was, I think, what led to the critical acclaim was that because it was so different and so new. This is kind of retreading a lot of that ground. How does it compare to playing that first game?
It's different enough,
okay,
to where the first game tells a more personal story, and this one has a grander feel to it.
Yeah.
Especially since you will be going to all 9 realms.
Right.
You will be essentially talking to everyone and recruiting people to your cause.
And I feel like just having it not just be Kratos' story is already doing that.
Yes.
Where it's already making you feel like it's more of an ensemble piece.
Yes. And there's a squirrel.
There's a squirrel?
Yes.
There's a squirrel? Do you play the squirrel?
Oh, I'm not going to spoil that. But there's a squirrel, which when he came on screen, I was like, I bet that's voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Was it?
Technically, no. But it's close enough to where I was like, might as well be.
Might as well be. We'll get to a surprise Patton Oswalt later in the show.
Yes.
But for now, yes. So anything else you want to talk about with God of War Ragnarok? I mean, you will probably return to this. You will be still playing this for the next few weeks, so you will probably have more to say soon.
Few weeks? Well, yes. I'm going to complete it and then see if they have a new game plus at the end of it.
Okay.
Because 2018 there wasn't. They had to patch it in.
Right, they did that later. You're right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if there's a new game plus here yet.
I don't know.
But I will find that out. I will try and get to the end, and I will bring Thimblewinter to an end and force Ragnarok upon us.
Well, great. Awesome. Also, that's what we need right now.
So do we want to talk about the collector's edition?
Yeah, you spent too much money.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I probably did.
Probably. Was it worth it?
I mean, it's worth it for just the game? No. Everything else that came with it.
Sure. Saw a cloth map in there.
Yeah, we got some maps, we got some dice, you got some figurines.
Stuff you're never going to touch.
What do you mean we're going to touch? I have the one from 2010. I have the collector's edition from that.
All right.
This is a box of treasure trove.
3, that would have been?
That's for 3, yeah.
3. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
The collector has collected.
Yep.
Anyway, all right, let's move on.
But the collector has collected through a non-pre-order.
Sneaky,
Just
very sneaky.
Happen to find it, know the right people, and talk to the right people to get it.
Always do.
Yep.
All right, I might need you on if I wake up on Monday and I don't have an email. We might need to pull some things. All right, let's move on. So that's God of War Ragnarok. You will talk about that more as the year goes on, and we'll probably return to it at the end of the year.
Yes, we will.
But for now, let's move on to the second half of the show. We start with television, and we start television, as always, with the sports corner. I'm not pointing at God of War. I'm pointing at sports.
Right above it.
We only have a couple little bits in sports. We should mention, though, did we
cover it last week?
Did we cover the World Series last week, or did I have that? No, it ended on Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night. Okay,
so no, we did not talk about this.
All right, I'll put that in here then.
It's important to note, yes.
Yes.
Baseball season's over. Your World Series winner was unfortunately the Houston Astros. They did not allow the Phillies to lead to a Game 7. They took Game 6 and won their second World Series in the last 6 seasons.
Yep.
Snore. Yeah, sad for the Phillies. I wish that
until it comes out that they were cheating again.
Well, yeah, just wait. But yeah, it was sad. I really like the ragtag bunch of idiots in the Phillies, and I wanted them to win really badly. But the Astros just had the better team ultimately and proved it. And yeah, I mean, say what you will about that. But yeah, they just played more consistent baseball is what you have to say, I guess, and won the series. So here's to next season.
I'm already on next season.
Yeah, well, let's move on. Let's think about next season. Deals are already being made. We have a few free agencies that are surprises. Who knows where some of these big stars will go? Aaron Judge watch is on.
Yep.
Clayton Kershaw watch is on. So we'll see where these guys,
they will be courted everywhere.
Yeah, so we'll see. In the meantime, other sports happened. Wrap up the NASCAR championship we've been talking about for the last few weeks. Joey Logano won and took his second title.
Yep, joins a select few who have won multiple NASCAR championships.
And unfortunately, that meant no watermelons were smashed.
No, Rats. But he got close. He ended the race in third place.
Close.
But just couldn't catch him.
Next up, the only news you have here in football is about something we already talked about briefly, which is their first games in Germany will happen this weekend as part of an international reach out program that they started in London.
NFL is in Munich this weekend, and Tom Brady will look to be the only player to win in 4 different countries.
A football player.
Yeah.
American football player.
Yes.
That's key. That is key. Interesting, I guess, enough. But again, these things just always feel like stunts to me. They never feel like they matter.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, it's just such a weird idea.
Especially when you have the 6-3 Seahawks.
Right.
I guess like the 3-5.
It's not even going to be a good game.
It might not be a good. I don't know. Somebody's on the mend now. Yeah. He's divorced.
Also,
he's free.
Also, it's like bright and early in the morning. It's like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So like, if you want to wake up and watch football tomorrow,
it's like 6 a.m.
Oof.
Yeah.
Eek, that's even worse. Anyway. Bright and early football.
Well, like 6 a.m. like Pacific time, like 8 o'clock.
Brutal.
Eastern, probably.
Anyway, anything else in sports before we move on here?
No, basketballs are basketballing.
Yep.
Hockey's are icing.
Yep, you know the deal.
College football is coming to a close shortly. Yeah. Championship games will be played next week, I believe, leading into the selection committee over Thanksgiving weekend, and then Heisman is in December.
All right.
So Heisman watch.
Look forward to that. Let's move on into television news then. And our first story is about, someone who was in the news in March for the Oscar ceremony, you could say. Chris Rock. Well, Netflix is taking advantage of his recent extra fame and is also utilizing its move into live streaming technology, with Chris Rock becoming the first person to test that out. Rock will perform live in a global streaming event in 2023. 2023.
2023. 2023.
Twice. Rock has been out on his ego death tour over the last few months, and during a show in London, promised that he would discuss more about his Oscars experience on Netflix. Robbie Pra, Netflix VP of stand-up and comedy formats, that's a role, said, "We're thrilled the entire world will be able to experience a live Chris Rock comedy event and be part of Netflix history." End quote. Or no, not end quote. "This will be an unforgettable moment, and we're so honored that Chris is carrying this torch." Now, end quote. Sure, yeah, why not take advantage of Chris Rock while he's hot? And yeah, this is a neat idea. I mean, I'm actually surprised it took so long for Netflix to do something live
event. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like the technology is there. They could have done this at any time. It's always probably been there. Well, I mean, not always. Netflix does go back pretty far.
Yes, Netflix goes back to the
like Twitch.tv was not the Twitch that we know of in 2010, for example. It's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Shout out to Justin TV. The OGs remember that.
But yeah, Netflix getting into the live streaming now.
Yeah.
This is, of course, in addition to them getting into the gaming industry now.
Yeah. You could see something like that.
The environment, was it?
Yeah.
Live interaction.
Honestly, this is just, what this is leading to?
TV.
No, specifically, what this is leading to?
The next season, Oscars.
The next season of The Circle.
Oh.
Live, like they do Big Brother.
Big Brother live, you think?
Yeah, because that's how CBS always has done Big Brother, is that they'll do certain episodes live. Like live reveals and stuff like that.
Well, wasn't that Big Brother After Dark?
That's the thing, is you could go onto the website and see just the cameras, and they're just always running.
Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix should do that with the next season of The Circle.
Just
let us watch The Circle live. Why not? Why not? There's no reason why not.
Server processing power, maybe.
Anyway, so yeah, interesting that they're experimenting with live television here. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the first step is do a comedy special.
Yeah,
although I don't know why they didn't just do it for their comedy on tour.
Netflix could have done this. Stuff. Yeah, they're waiting for a name big enough, I guess, to be the first to do it. They got one.
A name that wasn't Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, maybe they wanted to reel that in a little bit. I wouldn't blame them. Speaking of things that happened at the Oscars, Jimmy Kimmel is back as the host of the 95th Oscars, upcoming in 2023, marking the late night star's third time fronting the ceremony, which he did last 5 years ago. He previously led the 2017 and 2018 telecasts, the former of which produced the famous La La Land Moonlight Best Picture mix-up. There's no official word on who might have also been approached for the Oscars gig. Hey, speaking of Chris Rock, unconfirmed rumors had circulated that the producers asked him first. But members will vote for this year's slate of films from January 12th to 17th, with the official nominations announced on January 24th. The Oscars will be held on Sunday, March 12th, day after my birthday, 2023, at the Dolby Theater. So there you go. Jimmy Kimmel's back. Interesting timing, considering everybody was kind of mad at Jimmy Kimmel for doing that bit while Quinta Brunson accepted her Emmy.
Yeah.
But hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah. He got his name out there.
He got his name out there, I guess. This is ABC, because of course it is. ABC has that deal with Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, we signed Jimmy Kimmel for another 5 years.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's that. All right. Those are Chris Rock bits, I guess. Moving on to television thoughts. You have some thoughts. Hey, it's that time of year again.
Yeah. Hey, it's that time of year again, where football season is in the middle.
Yeah.
Of doing what they did last year,
right?
Which is following a team mid-season,
right?
This time it's Hard Knocks with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes, the hardest of knocks.
Yes, who are not in first place. They're struggling to make the playoffs. They're in contention, but they got some people back.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's more Hard Knocks in
more
season.
Hard Knocks.
Maybe they'll go further than the Colts did. Speaking of the Colts, I didn't have that in news, but they hired a coach that has never coached in the NFL.
Great. Awesome. That's a recipe for success.
Yep, they brought in Mr. Saturday.
Hey! Well, what do you do?
But yeah, Hard Knocks with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
It's on HBO Max. I think it's on No, it's not on regular HBO. It's on HBO Max.
Right.
If you want to watch more in football with the Arizona Cardinals, where you can watch them on Sunday and then watch them on Tuesday. But there's the Arizona Cardinals, and we are Ravens fans here, so we're like, boo you. Go lose some games.
Well, Thankfully, that's not the only thing you watch, though.
No, it's not the only thing I watch.
Speaking of Netflix reality television.
Yes. They have a new thing out. I think it's part of their like expanding games concept called Triviaverse.
Triviaverse.
Yes, where you answer as many questions as you can in a minute. The whole thing takes about 5 minutes, 3 rounds, minute between, 30-second like interstitials. And it's random trivia.
Okay. This is different from that trivia crack thing they did earlier this year,
different
right?
from trivia crack.
Okay.
Yes.
I had for a moment be like, wait a minute, deja vu.
No, this is random trivia that may or may not give you 4 options.
Okay.
Sometimes it's either like this or that, true or false, or multiple choice. It's fine. I think this is also expanded to more like their game section of trying to get people to like climb the leaderboard, play this multiple times. It's only 5 minutes. Play with multiple people. There is a 2-player option for this.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fine. It's not making me want to go back. It's also not maybe something more akin to maybe using it on my phone than actually watching it on my screen.
Which I imagine they probably thought that was where most people would interact with this.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
Right.
But, yeah, it's a phone thing.
I wouldn't either. Who has Netflix on their phone?
Yeah.
Weird people. That's it. No, probably a lot of people.
Watching
actually.
Netflix on the go?
We're just old and we just want to watch Netflix. We just want to watch TV on a TV.
I'm sorry. I can't Netflix and chill like in my car.
I mean, you could. A little cramped in there.
Yeah.
But
Netflix and chill in the park?
Don't do it in public.
No.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Exactly. That's why you do it in the safety of your home. Yeah. You can Triviaverse on your couch.
Yes. Where it's safe.
Yes.
Anyways.
What
else did you watch?
The other thing on Netflix that I watched and finally wrapped up, Love is Blind Season 3.
Did it get any better?
For who?
That is an excellent question. I don't know.
Some people got married.
Okay.
Some people said yes.
All right.
Some people should have said yes.
Okay.
Some
people should have said no, just like that Taylor Swift song.
Yeah, some people definitely said no. And some people should have definitely said no before they ever got to the altar.
Oh, boy.
There's some huge drama that blew up following one of the couples, especially on the way that it ended in the wedding episode and the way that they were attacking, or one person was attacking in the reunion. And I say that very one-sided because it was very one-sided what Netflix showed.
Got it.
I mean, you can watch it. You can go online, look at the forums, look at the excess interviews that have been done since to get more information. But yeah, drama, soupy drama, toxic drama for drama's sake.
Will you still be watching this when the inevitable season 4 happens, or are you done?
Oh, I'll be watching it when the after the altar 3 episodes come out and be like, ooh, let's see if they actually made it. Because I bet they didn't.
God, I don't know how you do it. I couldn't.
Oh, it's because there's no actual drama in my life.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I guess if you're lacking, then you can go get some.
Oh no, there's just too much drama.
Anyway.
Anyway.
And last but definitely not least.
Yes. Last but definitely not least, today is November 12th.
It is.
Which means today celebrates Disney Plus's official 3rd birthday. It's been 3 years since
Disney Plus, of Disney Plus
unveiled. And I only know this because I finally got charged for Disney Plus.
So you had the 3-year deal, right?
Yes.
Wow, it's finally happened.
No, it finally hurts because I paid $60 or $70 for those 3 years.
Right, and now it's like $90.
No, and now it's $70 for 1 year.
Ouch!
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 Anyways, part of this, they have new shorts out for Zootopia called Zootopia Plus.
Yes.
It's 6 shorts detailing the lives of different animals within Zootopia.
Right.
But there's a caveat to this. I feel like when they assign this to the animators, is like, you can do whatever you want in Zootopia, but it has to have these 2 things. One, it has to reference something specific currently on TV.
Okay.
And 2, it has to connect to the Zootopia film.
Right.
Either in an actual an actual clip of Zootopia has to be not only referenced but shown and connected to these shorts.
So these are stories that are happening concurrently with the events of the film.
Yes.
I have a theory about why they did it this way. And I don't know if you're going to agree with this theory. My theory about why they had to do it this way was because you would think, oh, well, the obvious thing to do with Zootopia is to feature the starring roles of Zootopia, the lead characters, the two lead characters. But here's why you don't do that in 2022. Because Zootopia was a cop movie. Zootopia was about the police.
Yes.
That doesn't really fly as well as it did upon Zootopia's original release as it does now. And I think Disney knows that. And so what Disney said, they probably said, it's like, well, what do we do with Zootopia that's not about the cops?
It's about everything else. It's about the animals living in Zootopia.
What are the stories about these other characters who are definitely not cops that are happening at the same time as the story about cops is happening in the background? I think it's smart. I think it's good that they did it that way. Also, I think it's more interesting because I think that part of Zootopia was not the interesting part about Zootopia. What is the one thing that people remember about Zootopia? The DMV. Mm-hmm. Because it was fun, it was inventive, and it was hilarious. And so why not delve into the side characters? So is this fun? Is this good?
Some of them are fun. Some of them are cringy, and some of them are like, you didn't really need to go that hard to it.
Sure.
But some of them are fun. It's the forcing it to occur while
shoehorning it into the story
within the same, not just the same setting, the exact same timeline and time frame that the film takes in. It's like, here's this little side story that you can see connect here because we're showing you actual footage from the movie.
It's like, is that super necessary? I guess is the question. Yeah.
Wow. It's fine. There's only 5 of them, or 6 of them. They're all very short, like under 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I might check this out.
I might check it out.
Chrissy, not a fan, apparently, of that first movie.
Okay.
So she's not interested. But yeah, I like that movie enough when that came out. So yeah, I might check this out.
It also parodies a bunch of entertainment tropes, TV tropes, movie tropes. So it's worth checking out. It's like, that's how they would do it in an animal Zootopia world. So it's fine.
Cool. All right. Fine. It exists.
It exists.
That's it for television then.
Did you watch anything?
Nothing new TV wise. Pretty much just been Jeopardy Tournament of Champions this last week and a half here. Yep. Just watching the upsets happen in real time. Jeez, we had 2 in a row this week. Where it's like, wow, these people who really favored these super champs just getting eliminated. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't caught up.
They are coming for them.
We have our finals, though. And so starting on Monday, 3-game final will occur between the remaining 3. And yeah, I'm kind of shocked who we ended up with, is the way I'll put it. Anyway, but that's all I've been watching. So that means we can move on to cancellations and renewals.
All right, what am I no longer watching?
We start at the top here on Netflix with Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, which of course is a follow-up to the Dahmer stuff they've already put out. It's basically they're adding 2 more seasons to this anthology about Jeffrey Dahmer.
So I'm sure if it's going to be about Jeffrey Dahmer, but they're going to add 2 more seasons. There's probably a name change to called Monster.
Whoever this is.
Whoever this is. Instead of just Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer story.
But it did really well for him, so of course they're renewing this.
Yeah.
The Watcher, no, not The Witcher, but The Watcher will get a 2nd season on Netflix.
I'll ask this again. Who watches The Watcher?
Not us, is the answer to that question. Not the Media Book Podcast. Next up, Carnival Row will get its ending after a 2nd season. 2nd season will be its last on Prime Video. Mm-hmm. A Million Little Things will finally end after 5 seasons on ABC.
Wait, A Million Little Lies?
Yeah, your favorite show to misname.
Are they finally going to tell everyone the truth now?
Maybe
like
not.
They should have from episode 1?
Hey, maybe. You just have to tune in to find out. The Empress will get a second season on Netflix. Bad Sisters will get a second season on Apple TV+. The Imperfects on Netflix, canceled after 1 season. Partner Track on Netflix, canceled after 1 season. This Fool, hey, we'll get a second season on Hulu. And then, unfortunately, we do have to go into deaths. Some rough ones this week. Man. First up, David Davis, good name. Age 86, was a TV writer/producer. Worked on The Bob Newhart Show, Taxi, and Rhoda. Won an Emmy back in 1979. Next up, Leslie Phillips, age 98. Actor, was in Carry On, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. You're using the British name here.
Oh, this is the British actor.
Sure, okay. And Gex, like the video game?
Yes.
Which Gex?
The voice of Gex.
I thought Dana Gould was the voice of
the voice of Gex in the UK version.
Oh, UK Gex.
Yes.
I did not know that there were different Gex.
Yes, different voices.
Different Gexes. I thought Dana Gould just did Gex everywhere.
No.
Wow. Fun fact there.
Yeah. Also not shown so he's pretty much a voice actor now.
Okay.
But yeah, not shown in Harry Potter. He was the voice of the Sorting Hat.
Oh, okay. You should have led with that because I feel like most people wouldn't know.
No, most people wouldn't know.
Well,
and now you know
what I mean. They would recognize that role.
Yes.
Well, all right. But age of 98, long life, honestly. Then the weird ones. One of these I actually did not know until just now. But we'll get there.
Well, yeah, because it happened this morning.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yes.
First up, though, real sad one. Aaron Carter, age 34, singer, of course, known for singles back in the 2000s. Crush on You, Aaron's Party, parentheses, Come and Get It, Leave It Up to Me, and That's How I Beat Shaq,
yes.
Which I'm surprised you don't have here.
Well, we were going to bring it up anyway.
A Radio Disney staple, brother, of course, of Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys. Yeah, had kind of a tragic last decade of his life, kind of was up and down. There was some drug use. There was some, just not looking super presentable when appearing for the press. Though in the last year seemed to have made a little bit of recovery. I saw some interview from last year where it seemed like he was doing okay and things were looking up for him. However, we don't know necessarily what the cause of death was. You know that he was found in a tub, unconscious in his home. But that's all we know. So kind of some mystery still around Aaron Carter's death, but still tragic and tragically young, I think is the thing there. Next up, Gallagher. I guess this is the one that happened this morning. Age 76, a comedian known for, specifically in 70s and 80s pop culture, known for smashing watermelons on stage. I think above all, he was a prop comic. He made use of a lot of props in his act. Kind of a predecessor to Carrot Top in a lot of ways. And his act. A pop culture staple for a while there. There were a lot of jokes in the early 90s making fun of Gallagher because of a bunch of Gen Xers who just thought Gallagher was a weird-ass dude. Most recently, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll mention Gallagher again later.
Yes, we will.
And then lastly, and probably the most sad for the millennials, Kevin Conroy, age 66, actor and voice actor, mostly known for being the voice of Batman in the Batman the Animated Series.
As well as the Arkham games.
Yes, as well as a lot of the video games from that era and beyond. Was a lot of people's Batman. A lot of people know Batman as Kevin Conroy's voice. A lot of people felt like his version of Batman was the definitive version of that character, beyond even live action Batman. Also in other things such as Search for Tomorrow and O'Hara. Will be definitely mostly remembered, though, for that Batman role and just like was a staple of voice acting for so many years.
Yep. When Kevin Conroy was going to announce to do the voice Batman for the Arkham games, then Mark Hamill signed on to do the voice of the Joker.
Yes, they were often a package deal because they loved working with each other.
Yes.
And their styles complemented each other for all those years that they worked together on the animated series.
Yeah.
Animated series, if you have not seen it, still holds up. The whole thing is on HBO Max if you want to watch it in remastered 4K. I don't have a whole lot of experience with it because as a kid, I was not into action shows. I was like, this isn't funny. I'm not watching it. That was the kid I was.
Not meant to be funny.
I know, that's the thing. So I didn't know. So I didn't watch it. I didn't care about it. But everybody who did has very fond memories of that show.
Yes.
So yes.
Definitive Batman voice, Kevin Conroy.
Conroy definitely will be missed, and definitely one of the saddest ones this year. Let's move on that note to movies. And we always start the movie section with the weekend box office numbers.
Where the weekend box numbers are even sadder than that.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Black Adam somehow is still your number one movie. It looks like everybody is just in a holding pattern until Wakanda Forever this week.
Yep.
$18 million this week. That's $137 million domestic. Still not bad for 2022, but we'll probably end up in the middle of the pack when we're talking about big performers at the end of the year. Number 2, One Piece film, Red. Continues the tradition this year of anime movies doing okay at the box office. $9.3 million debut.
Yep, and Luffy gets one step closer to finding the One Piece.
Sure, whatever the hell that means. Ticket to Paradise is your third movie with $8.5 million debut. No, not debut. Continuing, $46 million domestic so far. It's also on digital already. So if you don't want to see it in a theater, you can now rent it at home.
Yes.
Number 4, Smile. $3.9 million, adding to a even 99 so far. That will break 100 next week, maybe.
Is anyone going to see it?
Maybe. I don't know. If it's not Wakanda Forever, probably not. And rounding out your top 5, Pray for the Devil, $3.8 million, adding to a $13 million total. Like I said, this week, big release is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But this coming up Friday, we have She Said, which I've seen bus stop ads for.
Yes.
Which I'm not sure what that is about.
Oh, that's the He Said, She Said. I think it's more...
Is that the Time Out girl or lady? Right? Or not Time Out. Time's Up.
Time's Up,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
But different than Bombshell.
Right, different. No, that's a separate thing.
Yes.
And then 13 Lives. Is that about a cat who lives a little longer than it should?
Okay, what was 13 Lives?
Cat who got a bunch of one-ups on the last level, I guess. What is 13 Lives? Let's see. Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen apparently are in this.
And Joel Edgerton. Oh, Rescue Mission. Oh, it's the Thailand one.
Oh, right. Yes, that's fun. Okay.
Yes, the Thailand Rescue Mission.
Yes.
Where
based on a true story.
Yes, where someone's going to play Elon Musk, right?
We'll see. Let's move on. Out of that, we are not talking about Twitter. We do not have time to get into the Twitter drama. I refuse to step into that. We are not an internet podcast.
Not even for $8?
Not even for $8. Let's move on. Just what I will say about that is RIP Twitter, potentially. Maybe next week we won't even have it anymore and at the end of our show. We'll see. Let's move on to movie news. We have a little couple bits here. A little crossover with the video game section.
Yes.
Gears of War, one of the biggest Xbox franchises, is heading to Netflix. The announcement comes after long months of negotiations in a competitive environment, with Netflix nabbing the media rights and partnering with Gears of War developer The Coalition. Netflix has grand ambitions for the title and a plan that includes first adapting the video game saga into a live-action feature, followed by an adult-oriented animated series. If everything turns out roses, more stories would follow. No filmmakers or producers are attached to the projects, with the video game franchise getting a fresh start after several big studio attempts at adaptations since way back when the series debuted in 2007.
Debuted 2006, right. And then 2007, trying to get... As also the same time that like Halo 3 came out, and they're trying to get a Halo series up off the ground. And look at that, 13 years later now.
Yeah. So
15 years later.
My first question, of course, who do you cast as live action Gears of War guy? And why is it not Dave Bautista?
It's Kevin Hart.
Oh, Kevin Hart?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, you cast Kevin Hart.
No.
Because if Kevin Hart
can
be in Borderlands,
no.
Kevin Hart can be in Gears of War.
It's Bautista, and everybody knows that I'm right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's obvious casting. As for Kevin Hart can be the other guy.
Well, it's either that or you get John Cena.
Yeah, I could see. Actually, just get all three of them.
Just go through.
There's your cast. Yeah. There's your cast because they both. I forget the names. That's why I'm not saying names because it's been a long ass time since I. Yes, Marcus Phoenix is the lead guy. I forget the two friends. Duncan doesn't sound right. There's a guy. There's the guy who's like the former football player, and there's the guy who has the spiked blonde what do you call that? The
Marcus is the only one we care about.
Yeah, exactly. He's the only one you care about is the John DiMaggio character.
Yes.
Also, do you get John DiMaggio for the series here? Do they pay John DiMaggio money to get John DiMaggio in the series?
I mean, do they pay him like vendor money to get him in the
That's
series?
what I'm saying. It seems like his price went up.
Yeah, but no, he has to like physically like act in it. Or
no, I'm saying in the live action animated thing that, or sorry, in the animated thing that follows the live action.
Oh,
you should get John DiMaggio.
Should, yeah.
You don't. And lastly, I will ask, and this is for people who played the first game as much as I did, will you have somebody say, look at all that juice?
You have to.
You have to. It's key.
Yes.
Yeah, I played the original 3 games a lot, and I really enjoyed Gears of War. 4 and 5 kind of lost me. I bought 4, played it for a hot second, and dropped off of it really quickly. And then 5 was on Game Pass, played like a couple hours, and again, dropped off of it. It doesn't hit the same as it used to.
This is where we need Shane and Chris to come in here
and
gush all over Gears of War.
Expert opinions here. Well, anyway. So yeah, I think this makes sense. I could easily see a movie, a Gears of War movie and a Gears of War series. There's a lot of lore there. There's a lot of stuff they could delve into. So interesting choice.
Yeah. Just caveat: if we've seen anything like the Halo series, someone may come in and be like, "I have no idea what this game is.
Let's make up a story.
So let's just make up a story."
It could happen, but who knows? It depends on who they get involved here.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to our second story here. Somebody who is no stranger to the Gears of War franchise, I believe did some voice stuff for it, Snoop Dogg. Universal has enlisted Black Panther Wakanda Forever co-writer Joe Robert Cole and director Alan Hughes, who directed Menace to Society and Dead Presidents, to tackle a definitive biopic of iconic rapper and entertainment mogul Snoop Dogg. Snoop is heavily involved with the project, which will incorporate music from his past catalog, of course. The project will mark the inaugural film from Snoop's Death Row Pictures, which he runs with Sarah Raymaker. Quote, I waited a long time to put this project together because I wanted to choose the right director, the perfect writer, and the greatest movie company I could partner with that could understand the legacy that I'm trying to portray on screen and the memory I'm trying to leave behind, said Snoop in a statement. It was the perfect marriage. It was holy matrimony, not holy macaroni. Imagine that in Snoop Dogg voice, and it's probably way funnier. Makes sense. Why not? Let's do it. Let's do a biopic of Snoop Dogg. It's been long enough. This is actually a perfect sequel in a way to the Straight Outta Compton. In a way, it's like, what happened after this? Well, here you go.
Here you go. Yep.
Snoop Dogg, the story. Yeah, sure. Why not? Who plays Snoop Dogg?
O'Shea Jackson Jr.
Kevin Hart. No, I actually have no idea who plays Snoop Dogg here. Unlike Cube, I don't think Snoop Dogg has a son that's ready to take the role.
You don't think
immediately?
So? Well, they had someone who was did a cameo in.
Yes, who was Snoop Dogg. Did you just get that guy?
You just go to get that guy.
Continuity between the two universes. Why not? Why not do that? Yeah, this is good. Just like Gears of War, I believe Snoop Dogg. There's a lot of lore to dig into here, and I feel like that'd be a fascinating movie to watch.
You got to start with him playing high school football at Olympic Poly.
Hell yes, let's go all the way back. Sure. Yeah. No. Good idea. Yep. Let's.
I mean, a lot of people like Snoop Dogg. Because it's interesting to see where the multi lives that he has lived.
Sure, and that's a perfect segue into some movie thoughts we have this week, because we watched movies. We didn't watch one movie. We watched 3 somehow.
Yeah, we watched the same movie.
Yes, one of which is a biopic.
Yes.
Which is that perfect segue I was talking about. From a real biopic to a parody biopic?
It has to be a parody biopic.
It's definitely a parody biopic. We're talking about Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, which is on Roku TV streaming. Okay, so I'm not really sure how it ended up here. I have a theory, or at least Chrissy has a theory about why she thinks it ended up there. But I'll get to that later when we're talking about the movie. But yeah, you have to kind of dig for it. But once you do, I am happy to tell you that Weird is one of the strangest and funniest movies that I've seen all year.
It's funny.
It's pretty good.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It ties in what you kind of vaguely know about Weird Al Yankovic into here's some other stuff you didn't know about him as well. It's weird. I mean, I don't know how many times we're going to say weird about
weird.
this.
It's very
It's
weird.
very weird. Yeah, it's definitely goes some places, to say the least. Madonna's probably featured in it, weirdly enough.
All right, so let's give some context. So it starts out as, okay, is this just going to be a story about, like a slightly fictionalized story about the origin of Weird Al? And if you know anything about the origin of Weird Al, there is some weird stuff that kind of led to him being in the position he was. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment there where I was like, oh, some of this is actually true. For the first like 30 minutes, it does actually tell you some true things about Weird Al's origins. Yes, a door-to-door salesman did sell him his first accordion. That is true. 2, he did record his first single in a bathroom.
Yes.
That's also true. And yes, Dr. Demento, radio DJ Dr. Demento, was his mentor and did work closely with Al in the beginning of his career and gave him his start. And that's where the truth basically ends. Because it veers a sharp left-right turn at some point around minute 30 and becomes one of the strangest things I've ever seen while remaining a parody of biopics. Think Walk the Line.
Walk Hard.
Walk Hard. Think Pop Star.
Yes.
There's a lot of similarities in where it's trying to hit the beats of a musician biopic, but while continuing to get weirder and weirder as the runtime goes.
It's as if someone gave someone bullet points of like Weird Al, like tell someone his life story to someone.
Right.
But that person is like drunk and cocaine and fueled, and we're like, okay, I'm getting most of this. But what if I write this down and we punch it up?
Yeah.
And not just a little punch it up,
but all the way.
Like as ridiculous as you think we can get.
Honestly, this is the only way this could have ever happened, because Weird Al is a co-writer here.
Yes.
He's also, of course, producing this.
He's also in it.
He's also in it in a cameo role. Don't worry. We'll get to Daniel Radcliffe because we have to talk about that. But before I do that, it makes sense, because what is Weird Al known for? He's known for taking a concept and blowing it up. And that's exactly what this movie is. It is the most Weird Al thing to happen. Which is saying a lot, considering this is also the man that gave us UHF, which is also a very bizarre movie. This works almost as a sequel to UHF in a lot of ways, because it is as weird, as zany, and goes to as strange places as UHF did almost 40 years ago at this point.
Has it been 40 years?
Almost. It was late, mid-80s?
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's been a while, and yeah, it does some strange things. So now, that's when we, of course, need to talk about Daniel Radcliffe, who is putting on a showcase of his talents in this thing. He is a convincing Weird Al, which is not something I was ready to say going into this, because you don't think, oh, he would be good Weird Al until you see this movie, and you're like, yeah, no, I get why you choose him.
Yeah.
He does some bizarre stuff. He is asked to do some bizarre things in this movie, and he makes it all work, and he's charming in it, and yeah, somehow the man pulls it off. I don't get it, but he does it.
Yes, Dan Radcliffe can definitely act.
Yeah, turns out. We know that.
Yeah, he can play more than just like either himself or like the fake British person.
Right.
That he's been like been casted for like the last couple films.
Yeah, I'm glad that his career has turned into this. Because he could have just
so weird.
He could just sat around doing nothing on that money, but he didn't.
Oh, yeah.
He has chosen to keep working, and he chooses the strangest things, and I'm glad that he does.
The weirdest things?
The weirdest things, you could say. You want to say weird again. But then, yes, the last thing I want to talk about, though, and you hinted at this, is the Madonna stuff in this movie.
Yes.
Do you think Madonna knows that one, knows that this happened, 2, has seen any part of this movie, or 3, cares?
I would go 3.
I don't think she cares, because there is a modicum of truth here. Yes, there is evidence, and they have said more or less, I think Weird Al specifically has said more or less, that they did work together and hang out for a period of time. That is true. Mm-hmm. That there was a period of his life where he was hanging out. To what extent is the question with Madonna. There is speculation that maybe they dated, maybe they slept together. Who really knows? Obviously, Madonna's never going to say anything about it, because she probably doesn't want to be associated with it. all we know for sure is that there was some sort of relationship there, like whether it was friends or just a business relationship. This movie takes that and runs with it. Madonna becomes the villain of this film, essentially, in some really wild ways that I don't even want to spoil because it goes some places, literally and figuratively. And yeah, the things that they do with Madonna's character here is fascinating that they got away with it. It's the stuff that you don't usually do with a person who is still living.
Yeah.
And that you name specifically as that living person. It's amazing what they're doing here. And it's baffling that she let this happen. Honestly, I don't know how this happened.
I don't know. I'm still baffled by the amount of cameos they were able to get into this thing.
Yes. So as we mentioned before, the late Gallagher is parodied in this film in a party that also features
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol, Conan O'Brien as Andy Warhol.
Yes.
Jorma Taccone of the Lonely Island as Pee Wee Herman of all characters.
Yes.
There's an Elvira in the background. Who's not in this thing?
There's a Dolly in there.
Yeah, Dolly, Salvador Dali's in this. Yeah, they take advantage of who was known in some way in popular culture in the 80s, and they're in this scene. It's amazing what this movie pulls off. So yeah, I say that yes, if you can find a way to find the Roku channel on streaming, absolutely do, because this thing is a wild. I don't know how this got made, honestly. It's pretty low budget, though. That's the one caveat, is that when anything happens that requires special effects, they don't look great. And overall, it does feel like kind of a rinky-dink operation. But honestly, I don't think Al would have had it any other way. I think it adds to the funny. And the thing that I think I said after Christy and I watched it was they just don't make movies like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like a relic. This feels like something that would have come out, and like content-wise too. Like, it doesn't get, obviously, I'm not meaning that in like, oh, it's problematic way. I mean that in, people don't smoke in movies anymore. People are constantly smoking in this movie. There's just stuff that happens in this movie that doesn't happen anymore. Like, it feels like something that jumped out of 1988, honestly. It's just something, like the tone of it feels like a Zucker Brothers comedy from the 80s. Like, they don't make movies like this, literally. They don't. And it's cool that it exists, and it's cool that Al got to make it.
Well, I doubt there's going to be a sequel to it.
God, no. No, they can't. They literally can't. Also, stay through the entirety of the credits.
Yes.
Because you want to hear the Weird Al song recapping the events of the film. Which sounds like a joke, but it's true. Great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, but it's definitely weird, as the name implies.
It is very, very weird.
Anyway.
Anything else we can say about it?
I think that's pretty much sums it up, unless you have anything else you want to mention about it.
The way the parody songs are strewn throughout the film.
I loved the bit about Eat It. And I don't want to spoil it. So I'm just going to say the stuff surrounding Al's writing of Eat It is very funny in ways that works really well in 2022. Anyway.
And that also pertains into Al actually showing up in the film as well.
Yeah, yes, it does. All right. But that's not the only thing we watched this week.
No.
You finally delved into it. You went into the conversation. You joined the conversation.
During the conversation.
You have now seen Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry, Darling.
Olivia Wilde starring.
Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry, Darling, starring Harry Styles.
And Florence Pugh.
As Darling.
Yes.
No,
she's Don't Worry.
Okay, and he's Darling?
Yes, he is Darling.
All right. Harry Styles is Darling in Don't Worry, Darling. A Olivia Wilde picture. All right, so what is going on in this film?
Oh, a lot's going on in this film, but then a lot is also not going on in this film. For as much as what is said on screen in Don't Worry, Darling, a whole lot more is said off screen, and you have to use your imagination and kind of read through the lines of what's happening off screen as well.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to the big twist at the end. Not necessarily a twist, but more of like why everything is happening the way it is at the end. It's, as Olivia Wilde said during the press going into it, yes, definitely takes after the Jordan Peterson, the incel movement.
Sure.
Definitely takes after inspiration and kind of not necessarily mocks it, but definitely like takes it to the extreme levels of like the getting back to the ideal 1950s lifestyle, the ideal fantasy that these men have of what they want out of a woman, what they want out of their lives.
And Wilde did a lot of talking about this thing because I feel like she thinks that maybe when people saw it that they misread what it was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've seen it, do you think she was just talking? Because from what everybody seems to say about it after they've seen it, it's like, what's the point?
That's kind of where I got to the end. Is like, okay, like the end happens, and then like, okay, but I want to see what happens after the end. I want to actually see some comeuppance here.
There's more to the story,
not just the escaping.
Sure. Part. Okay.
I want to see like this is all super fucked up. Let me see the actual consequences now. And I think that's just her way of saying, well, this is still going on. So technically there are no consequences.
Yeah, there's no end here because it keeps happening.
Yeah, because...
But does that make a satisfying movie? No.
But then again, I guess her response would be, but life is never satisfying as you want it to be.
Do you think she talks...
the theme of the movie.
Yeah, but do you think that they actually pulled all of this off? Or do you think she's just talking a big game here?
How much of it... It's a fine balance between how much of it is beating you over the head with the exact same theme for 2 hours or just over 2 hours until you finally get it, and then walking out and be like, but I already knew that.
Do you think it would have worked better if she hadn't done so much talking about it, and if the conversation around the film was different or perhaps non-existent, like if you had gone into this blind?
No, not necessarily, because like even through the trailers, I kind of gleaned like what I would kind of assume was going to happen. Not a whole lot of Chris Pine in here. I do have some questions about like the actual technology being used in it of keeping everyone in the area. Because like the more you think about it, it'd be like, how is this actually working in concept rather than just in the fantasy world that they are living in?
Right. So it sounds like big ideas and maybe questionable execution.
Well, it's big ideas. It gets the execution across, but it like the delving into like the nitty gritty of like why it's kind of like the Star Wars port thing of like, oh, you have like a whole like Death Star spaceship, but one exhaust port will blow the whole thing up.
You didn't really think about this, did you?
Yes, but then you take like Rogue One and like you explain like, oh no, that was on purpose. See, it was on purpose, but we're never going to get that here.
So do you think that maybe this is just a dry run for Olivia Wilde? Do you think the next project she works on maybe she'll have a better grip on which kind of story she wants to tell?
I think so, because visually it was stunning. I liked it. I liked it visually. I liked the cinematography in it. I liked the story aspect. The pacing was great. The different directorial choices within it.
So there's skill. She's showing skill, but it's just a question about...
There's definitely a lot of stuff in there that I do like about it.
On a different project, maybe she'll be able to do better.
Well, you always improve on what you've done.
Yeah.
You never want to regress.
Right. So, okay. Well, we'll see, I guess.
I like Harry Styles in it, surprisingly. I like Florence Pugh in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good elements in here. It's just when you mix it all together, does it actually make a good cake?
Delicious cake.
Not all cake is delicious.
Yeah. Urinal cake?
Yeah.
Not delicious?
Yep.
Anyways,
good example.
On that
I don't know where you pulled urinal cake from. Definitely
That's cake in the name. It's probably the least tasty cake.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Especially compared to tasty cakes, which are delicious.
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
That doesn't mind me. I should order a cake.
Oh, I should order a cake.
Yes.
Let's move on from cake to Selena Gomez. This is the last movie we're going to talk about today. And I was supposed to talk about this last week, and I totally dropped the ball.
Yes.
But yeah, this is on Apple TV Plus. This is, as I mentioned earlier, a documentary about Selena Gomez, musical artist and actor. Selena Gomez, most recently talked about here on the podcast as a star in Only Murders in the Building.
Yes.
Where she
did a lot of stuff before that.
Yeah, but of course, most people know her as an artist and a Disney Channel star. And this documentary kind of centers around both her, a little bit about her background, but mostly on the last few years from about 2019 to current day, and specifically her struggle with anxiety, depression, and some physical ailments that led to her career getting a little complicated. So this follows in the tradition of recent musical documentaries that we've seen, including Taylor Swift's Miss Americana, Billie Eilish's one on Netflix that I forget the name of.
That mean the one on Apple TV
Plus, sorry. And
not to be confused with the one on Disney Plus, which is the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's different. So yeah, it takes some cues from those, and it does give you, in a similar way, kind of a intimate portrait of Selena. You get to see her in conversations with her team. You get to see her preparing for press junkets. You get to see her preparing for concerts. So you get kind of like a day-to-day like image of what Selena's life looks like. But then it kind of turns when she starts having these like essentially anxiety-induced attacks, when she becomes overwhelmed by the pressures of performing, the pressures of answering questions and pressers, frustrations with the questions she's being asked. And what it kind of creates is she just has to stop. She has to bail, and she has to basically explain to her team and her fans that she needs to take care of herself. This dovetails really well with the kind of narrative over the last few years in art and in sports about paying attention to mental health and not always being like having to do these things like being in press or doing a tour if you don't feel ready for it. Like Naomi Osaka, like recent tour cancellations from artists such as Selena. And so it's an interesting story for now, where you are seeing more of this story being told.
Okay.
And it's a really intimate portrait of that. You get to learn a lot about Selena Gomez as a person and what she's dealing with. And yeah, it's fascinating in a lot of ways. It also reminds me, and I don't know if I talked about it on this podcast, but the Shania Twain thing from earlier this year. That was also kind of a view into Shania Twain's life and her dealing with Lyme disease and how that affected her ability to perform.
Now, how is it compared to the Demi Lovato thing that came out last year?
Very also similar to the Demi Lovato thing. Because you get a lot of parallels there, where like except in Selena's case, she was not abusing alcohol or drugs. The press just thought she was, because she had become so secretive. And it goes into that about her having to deal with that bad press and what that meant to her image. It's really interesting, and it does cut off a little bit right before kind of present day. It doesn't talk about her return to acting with Only Murders, which is an interesting kind of extra evolution of that story. Yeah. But it does leave her in kind of a note where she ends up kind of owning this about herself, and she ends up being invited to the White House and helps organize mental health teaching procedures for young kids, and trying to she wants to try to use her experiences and let people learn about it. You also see her in a bit in this documentary visit Africa, and how that experience, like teaching and being able to talk to young girls about their experience with their own mental health, and how that affects her. And she comes back, and that inviolably changes her. Like, she, from the rest of that time onward, she talks about that experience as like, that's what she wants to do. She wants to be an icon for change. She wants to tell people her story, so people aren't suicidal, who don't have who don't do self-harm, like basically take her lessons about her own dealing with her own mental health issues and let that help somebody live. It's a really moving thing. It's really well done. And I think it's really well timed for the current conversation we're having about mental health in the world right now. And yeah, and it gives you an insight into Selena Gomez you might not have had. So yeah, I had a really good time with this thing. It is definitely heavy, so get ready for that if you are going to watch it. But yeah, definitely one of the better examples of that kind of documentary you've seen among several in the last few years.
All right, sounds good.
Good stuff. Apple TV Plus for that one.
Yep.
And that's it for movies.
And yep, I didn't watch anything else.
No, that'll do that. I think next week, like I said, we'll try to get some Wakanda Forever thoughts.
Yep.
But for now, we can now move into our fan question. We have another question from our number one fan here this week. Hey there, Boatsman. The one thing I get bummed out about when I listen to your guys' podcast is I have no interest in sports and therefore feel left out of the conversation.
Well, that's great, because this isn't a conversation. This is a lecture.
It's not a lecture.
We're just talking to you about sports.
So yeah, my question, he asks, is if you could build a fantasy football team, and I mean truly fantasy, taking from any video game or television/movie characters, what football team would you make? Maybe then I could understand the purpose and skill set required of a real football team. I was a big Blood Bowl player back in my day, so I really like me some fictional football. First question I have for a fan is, did you ever play Mutant League Football by EA on the Super NES? Check that out.
I think they also put out a backyard baseball guy.
Did they reboot that?
I don't think they did. But see, I think it's more of like a backyard football.
Sure,
baseball
guy. The backyard series. What happened to the backyard series?
Yes.
Remember backyard wrestling? Yeah. Anyways, backyard golf.
Yep.
Remember those games? Oh God.
I think they turned into Grounded.
Yes, I guess so. They all got shrunk. Anyway, this is a good question. I was telling pre-pod, first thought I had was actually the cast of Gears of War. But then if you brought up no, they would just be defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Because
they're huge and they're bulky.
Yeah, that's the thing is for defensive linemen in football, you basically want brick walls that can't be moved past. You're trying to block.
Yeah.
Is essentially what they're doing. So you want big guys that are wide, but also that are athletic. You don't want a big guy that's slow because then he can't do the block.
But that's the thing now. This is building a fancy football thing. Right. So you need one quarterback, two receivers, two running backs, one tight end, and one kicker.
All right. So we start with, I think you get any Pokemon trainer as your quarterback because you need to be able to throw. They throw Pokeballs all the time.
Oh, see, I was thinking the Pokemon trainer should be the receiver. Because you got to catch them all.
Well done. So for a running back, you want somebody who is fast. So obviously you get Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog is perfect running back. That's perfect.
Or since you have to put two slots in there, second one goes to Tracer.
Oh yeah, Tracer. Yeah. Yep. Okay, good call.
You get some speed in there.
All right. What about yes, we don't have the quarterback then because you're right. Pokemon trainer will be your wide receiver. So who's a good quarterback? So quarterbacks, they need to be they need to be good at thinking because they're putting the plays together in their head. They're also under pressure a lot. They need to act well under pressure and they need to throw something a long way.
For me, it's Kratos.
Okay. All right. Kratos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He throws the axe very far.
Do you think he has an analytical mind though? Or do you think he's just ripping?
He is the general on the field.
All right. Okay. All right.
He has the mindset to put people where they need to be, to think through creative solutions, to take down the other team.
All right. Okay.
And if need be, he can go into his God Rage mode and run over them.
There you go. All right, we need a kicker.
Oh, yeah. Here's the kicker. You have to find someone with a good leg.
Chun-Li.
Yes.
Chun-Li is your kicker.
Yes, obviously.
Absolutely. Those legs, those thighs. Have you seen those thighs?
The helicopter.
Yeah, just do that at the ball.
Yes.
It's right through the uprights every time.
You can kick the ball the entire length of the field with that leg.
Yeah. That's all video game characters, but you get the idea.
Yes. And lastly, a tight end.
I think yes. Ooh, who's the tight end? Captain Falcon.
Lara Croft.
Came at that from different directions.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's video game characters. I don't know. Do we want to do this for TV?
For TV? No, because if I'm doing TV and film, I'm just going to get the cast of The Replacements.
Because they are football players.
Yes, or the cast of Remember the Titans.
I think a good way. So here's where I'm going to answer the other half of your question, which is, hey, you're not into sports. What can you glean out of sports? Conversation. And here's something that I learned. So if you know anything about if you've gone back into the archives, which I'm not sure how far back you've been listening, but at the beginning of the show, I didn't actually want to do a sports segment. Mike had to convince me over several years to do a sports segment as lengthy as we get into now.
It was part convincing you. It was part, I'm just going to keep doing this until you tell me no.
And what ultimately I found out is that sports and TV dovetail super well a lot because of stuff like the Super Bowl, that at some point I was just like, well, I guess we have to talk about some sports stuff if we're going to talk about television. Mm-hmm. And big sports finales like the Super Bowl and the World Series and the Final Four and stuff and March Madness are big television events. So they are television news, whether I liked it or not. But then what happened, what I noticed after I was kind of embroiled in sports conversation is eventually it worked and it clicked and baseball happened to me. And that's the thing that glommed onto me. And now I'm a baseball fan. And I think that one of the things that got me there was video games. One,
Yes.
I played a lot of
the
show, and that got me into kind of understanding the mechanics of it. So that's one recommendation I have, is I think the best way to learn about a sport is to play the video game version of it. Play Madden for a little bit and see if you can kind of get an idea of the rules of football. It's fairly okay at getting you an idea. However, even in 2022, they need to be better about onboarding new people into Madden.
Yes.
It's a hard game to learn. That being said, there are sports games that do a good job of teaching you, like, okay, here's the best ideas. Also, a lot of sports concepts you can kind of extrapolate out into metaphors for other things. Like, I think a lot of people like to use the metaphor it's almost like war football is, because you have these specialized roles that are designed to do certain things to breach the other side's defenses.
Hence my God of War reference for quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah, you're like, that's why a lot of people call quarterbacks like generals, because that's essentially what they have to do. They are not the only piece of the puzzle, but they are the piece of the puzzle that is kind of giving roles and assignments to the other people on their team, right? And so that's the hierarchy of football. Not a lot of sports are like that, but football is unique in that way. For baseball, the thing that got me onto baseball and like kind of conceptualizing the rules of it was that idea of baseball is essentially, at least until the ball leaves this format, is a battle between the pitcher and the batter. It is the pitcher is trying to outsmart the batter, and the batter is trying to outsmart the pitcher. The batter understands there's only a certain amount of things that this pitcher can do, but they don't know when and what they're specifically going to get out of that bag of tricks. Meanwhile, on the other side, the pitcher knows that the batter is expecting certain things from him, whether it's because they watch tape, because they've seen data on what pitches that they have. But the pitcher knows knows their weaknesses, and they also know where the batter has been really good at hitting lately and what they haven't.
You're talking about the shift?
Exactly. Stuff like the shift thing comes into mind. Also, hot zones in their batter's box. It's like there's a lot of things happening between those two things. But that kind of back and forth kind of chess match was fascinating to me when I was introduced to it in that way. I think the trap that you can get into is thinking of sports as just a game, when it's way more than that. There's strategy. And when you start thinking of a strategy, it becomes almost like video game-like in the way you can think about it. So that's just my tip as someone who was not a sports person that has now become a sports person. If you think about it in different ways, and if it's treated in a different context, things can start clicking that maybe they didn't click before.
Well, I think you also glommed onto baseball because there was no running clock on it.
They
weren't like switching sides like every what could be like 1 minute or 10 minutes or like baseball or basketball and hockey, like every 10 seconds where you're on offense. No, now you're on defense. No, now you're on offense. Now you're on defense.
It really depends on what
baseball, there is no clock. You're got to get 3 outs. So it's very easier to understand. Like, I need to get this person out of the game or out of the inning in order to go to the offense.
And honestly, I think one of the things here is that if you're having trouble like really glomming on, like getting an idea of football, maybe football is just not your sport. Like that's what I ultimately found out. I grew up watching a lot of football because my dad watched football every Sunday. So I knew a certain amount of rules, and I still know more or less how football works and what happens there. But I just don't want to watch it anymore because it kind of bores me now.
Yeah. Like we had football on earlier. I was like, hey, check out this catch. Like,
it's a good catch. There's still moments that are interesting, but in general, like learned this about myself. Is like, you know what? I don't think I'm getting what other people are getting out of this, and that's fine. I don't have to. Ultimately, just feel it out, and above all, you don't have to even be a sports person if you don't want to.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other sports out there, like golf. Go golfing. It's just between you and the ball.
Yeah, it's just you and the ball.
It's you and the ball. Getting the ball in the hole.
And the ethics of having a place that uses way too much water and land, and rich people are mostly playing it. And
human resources.
That's a whole other can of worms we can't get into here. But anyways, thank you for joining us for the Media Boat Podcast. That will be it. That will wrap it up. Thank you for the question. You can always send more at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, feedback, anything you would like to say to us, we are there. You can also catch us next week on YouTube. We'll have another live episode for you. Just go to YouTube and search Media Boat Podcast. Find our channel, like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications when we go live. For now, you can find us on social media, on the remaining social media networks that exist. Twitter, as of this recording, we are at Media Boatcast. Facebook, as of this recording, we have a page if you search Media Boat Podcast there. And you can find us MediaBoatPodcast.com for an archive of our older shows. And you can tune in next week for another episode with thoughts about Wakanda Forever, thoughts about all sorts of other things, maybe more TV, sports thoughts.
About, so I have Wakanda Forever next week. We will have Pokemon next week.
Scarlet Violet, yes, next week.
We'll probably have Andor next week as well. I'll finally finish that, even though it ended this week.
What a killer week. So get ready for a big show next week.
More next week, more of us, more news, more thoughts.
All right.
More next time.
See you guys then. Bye.
All right, bye. And let's hit live. Oh, no. End live stream.
Bye. I gotta work.
I'll play you.
I gotta work. Then you're like, all right, gotta work.